Happy Wednesday to you. Welcome to Deer Talk Now from the Deer and Deer Hunting headquarters. Once again with you, I'm Dan Schmidt along with Brad Rucks. Brad, how's it going today?
Good. It's a great time of year, across the Midwest especially. A lot of archery seasons are open up. Wisconsin opened up this past weekend. Minnesota opened up this past weekend. We were both out. I had a great time with my son. We didn't shoot anything. Had multiple does. Close enough, just couldn't get the deal done, but it's always fun to get out in the woods.
Sure is, isn't it? The deer were moving this weekend. I know you were hunting on your farm here in central Wisconsin. I went over to Buffalo County this weekend and had success. It was a great hunt. We didn't see a ton of deer, but we only sat afternoons because, as you know, these early season hunts, you don't want to go in there and booger those deer out in morning.
Yeah, absolutely. On my entire farm, I have two spots that we can sit in the morning, and actually we got the right wind for it on Sunday morning, and we sat there, saw doe, two fawns, but like I said, the doe actually knew something was a little bit up and didn't really spook. It just kept on looking up at the tree stand, and Noah just couldn't get pulled back even though she was 7 yards away. So, but it was a great hunt, and I think with this cooler weather, the big deer are going to start to move. I can't wait to check trail camera photos. We saw a mature buck Sunday night across our pond in the food plot, and when I went over there the other day just to pull a camera out on Monday, there's a huge scrape, and it's not one of my mock scrapes. They're already starting to make some scrapes out there where they're spending some time.
Yeah, so. It was fun for us. I was with Nate Winters. He's a part-time videographer for Deer and Deer Hunting TV. We had it all come together Sunday afternoon. We'd been sitting for a while. We saw one doe, and lo and behold, here comes a buck right at perfect prime time. He comes walking down the ridge. Just got great video. I can't wait to see this on the TV show next year. But he comes walking down the ridge, gets to the tree, and we used that Scent Killer Gold, the brand new spray from Wildlife Research. He did not smell us. Walks right in front of me, presented a 20-yard shot. Rage extreme, and boy, oh boy, oh boy, the Matthews helium. I mean, it all came together. It felt like such a good shot. It was a good shot, and we got fresh venison tonight.
So how big was that hole from the Rage Extreme? I cannot wait to shoot a deer.
Oh my gosh, you got to see that thing, because last year I shot the titanium Rages, and I
2 inches.
really like those.
Yeah.
But these I think are 2.5. The Rage Extremes are just insane. I mean, basically that deer was dead the second the arrow hit him. We were on a bluff, so it was like a straight down, hill, and he basically, had that hill not been there, he'd have maybe went 40 yards.
Wow.
And you could have seriously, I don't want to be gross, but you could have seriously put your whole hand in that exit, or the entry window.
It was close before on just the 2 inchers. You could definitely get 3 fingers, if not sometimes 4, if it was on a little bit of an angle. And you shot yours hard quartering away,
quartering away, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt you could have got.
And what was impressive is, because I got that helium set at 54 pounds. And they say when you shoot lower poundages, you got to be careful. Well, the energy that bow produces is just phenomenal, because like you said, he was hard quartering. That arrow hit him almost in front of the flank, right behind the ribs, and it took out everything in its path. It took out the guts, it took out the liver, cut the liver in half. I mean, like I said, I don't want to be graphic, but when you're a deer hunter, you want to know how this stuff performs. It went through the lung and lodged in the heart. So wow. I got entire penetration, 54 pounds on that helium, and that Rage with propelled on a Maxima Hunter KV from Carbon Express. When you have the good equipment, it really makes a difference. So let's get to talking about the show today. We got a lot of things in store for you today. Some other big news, and the guys have a picture of it here last night. Last night in Wisconsin, we got word of a 244-inch non-typical. I think it's 27 points. It was shot last night, just actually north of us here in northeastern Wisconsin. It's an insane non-typical that could be the new state record non-typical.
Absolutely huge. We don't know the entire story, but the guy was supposed to have lots of trail camera photos of this deer. It's not like he didn't know it was there. He's killed multiple big deer before. There's no doubt in my mind this is one of those bucks he probably had patterned and was as anxious as I am to get out in the tree stand. If I had something like that on my farm, I'd be crawling.
Oh
my skin would just be absolutely crawling.
Hey,
he made the most of it.
It looks like a wash basket on that deer's head.
Let's talk about conditions. I mean, what was it last night? It rained during the day, most of the day for quite a while. Windy, but a high pressure moved in. You have rain and you have the high pressure moving in. Big whitetails are going to move. They might move right before dark. I don't know what time you shot it, but you knew it was going to be one of those special nights.
So. Yeah, it was awesome. And speaking of potential state record deer, This week, Saturday, is the big story. King Buck is supposed to be panel scored by Boone and Crockett in Montana this Saturday. Haven't heard an update yet on what's actually going on, but I understand that the man who owns the rack now is driving that deer out starting tomorrow. He's going to drive it out from Wisconsin to Montana. We might know next week if we have a new world record whitetail here. It's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens here. I know everybody's excited about it. Last week we reported that the first man who scored this deer, John Ramsey, had admitted that when he first scored this deer at 62 days, which was 2 days after the official drying period, it netted 218 and changed as a typical.
Wow.
If that's true and that holds through, that's almost 5 inches bigger than Milo Hansen's deer. So we're going to find more about that out probably next week. The panel's going on Saturday. I don't know if we're going to know immediately afterwards, but we're going to find that out. Right there, if you want the exclusive video on how this deer should have been scored, it's on the website. Craig Cousins let us show his video of him actually going by the book and scoring the king buck by the rules that were in place in 2006-07 when that deer was killed. And as you'll see, this deer is just not only incredible, but it really it deserves that second look, and B&C is now finally going to give it that second look, so to speak, to have that thing officially scored. Today in our store, we got some really cool specials. There's a special deal going on. If you place an order, you're going to get some free cover scent. Very neat. We also still do have a few bottles of the Smokies left. The Smokies pre-orbital lure. If you want to make a mock scrape this fall, get some of this. This is the ticket pre-orbital lure. You're not going to find it anywhere else. We have a special. Like I said, supplies are limited on this stuff, but if you're going to hunt over mock scrape, try that out. But Brad, check this out. We got these in today, and I'm really excited about it. This is the new can cooker that we're going to have in the store. It's got the Deer and Deer Hunting logo on it.
Now, if you guys,
it's pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not familiar with this, it's a product that's been out for a little while, and we did our own logo on it. I set up the deal at the ATA show with the guy. What's really cool about it is, basically you start off with your potatoes and that stuff, and you put all of it on the bottom, and it cooks everything at the same time. I think the deal that they're doing with it is they're giving away the grate that can go on the bottom that holds the product out of the moisture a little bit.
Holds it out. I got that back at my desk, but you can. It's got a nice rubber gasket seal on here, and basically, you're going to make enough food in there to feed an entire army.
Absolutely.
But you fill all your food in there. The whole idea of this is it cooks with steam.
Yeah.
And you basically, your potatoes, your carrots, your onions, your venison, you pop it in there, you snap it tight. It's really solidly built. And you can put that on any heating source. You can put that on a grill, outside, whatever.
Inside.
I mean, wherever you want, you can put that on a stove and cook that in there. About an hour, you have an entire tub of food for deer camp, football Sundays, whatever you're going to do. Check it out. I got to get one of these. Really cool.
I'm getting one just so that I can pre-do everything. It's going to be in the refrigerator. My kids come home. They'll know at 5 o'clock, put this on. When I get home at 6:10, boom, dump it out, and you got supper made. I mean, they'll have it all made for me.
I can't wait to try it. Perfect. Very cool. So that's what's going on in the store. Be sure when you go to the store, you're going to get a discount if you enter in Deer Talk. If you're ordering online, go into the dialog box, enter Deer Talk to enter the coupon. You're getting 10% off. Or if you want to call, you can call the toll-free number. And there's the toll-free number. If you don't want to order online, call the toll-free number. Tell the operator that you want the promo Deer Talk. You're going to get 10% off. So you're going to get another $10 off that cooker just about.
Nice.
By entering that Deer Talk, ordering one today. Check it out right now. It's on the homepage of deeranddeerhunting.com, or it's on the homepage of Shop Deer. So you can find it shopdeerhunting.com. You can find it there as well. Today, on today's show, we have a special guest, and if you're a Deer and Deer Hunting reader, you're going to recognize his name because he's in almost every issue, and it's Reverend Zeke Pfeiffer. He's going to be calling us here in a few minutes. He's from Nebraska. Zeke is just an avid bow hunter, a really good guy. Brad, I know you've read all of his articles in the magazine.
Tons, hardcore.
Can't wait to talk to him.
Hardcore at his best.
Yeah, so. Zeke's going to talk to us. He's not only written for us, but he appears everywhere. He's a very sought-after speaker. And the thing about Zeke is, and I should say, I always call him Reverend Pfeiffer, but he likes to be known by his first name. He's an evangelical pastor from Nebraska, and when he talks, he fills stadiums. I mean, he He's an inspirational speaker. He's just one of the best writers I've ever known. Some of the articles you might have seen in Deer and Deer Hunting are some of the most popular ones we've ever had. I forgot one item that the guys just showed here is the Deer Hunter's Almanac, brand new. We
came in.
We just got it last week. It's brand new. It's in the store. You can actually get this now on Shop Deer Hunting before you can get it on newsstands. It's the new 2013 Almanac. Jake Edson put this together again, and it's literally got more than 1,000 facts and tips in it. All the state-by-state harvest information. It's, to me, this is like the looking at my who's who in baseball, because I love baseball. For deer hunting, I absolutely love it because I can get info from every state in there.
I agree. I mean, that harvest trend information on the back of it, I think that's priceless. I mean, you can go in there, you can see what states are doing well, where the whitetail population is expected, typical harvest percentages. So if you're planning that out-of-state trip, I mean, this is a great resource to figure out what state you really want to go to.
Absolutely. And another thing I wanted to check here, Zeke's going to call us in just about 2 minutes, is that today everybody's been sending in their questions. Again, thank you very much. We got just tremendous response. Questions for Zeke Pfeiffer. We're giving away, again, something for everybody who asks a question. If we forget you, just make sure you email us your mailing address. We need that when you email us so we can get you out. We have some more rut calendars, some almanacs, and today we're giving away another half dozen of the Carbon Express Heart Attack arrows. And Brad, you can talk about those quick.
If you're not familiar, this is the arrows that are found exclusively in Dick's Sporting Goods, and it's a deal that Carbon Express, Deer and Deer Hunting, and Dick's put together, where if you buy those 6 arrows, there's going to be a card in here for 3 free issues of Deer and Deer Hunting. It's got a over $9, almost $12 value on it. So go ahead if you're looking for arrows. They're great arrows, very similar to Carbon Express's Blue Streak, which is a quality arrow.
Good hunting arrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Go there, buy your arrow. You're going to be able to get 3 free issues.
And the other thing is if you're already a subscriber, they're going to tack 3 issues.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll extend it. So.
I really like those arrows too. I've shot them. I mean, Carbon Express makes such a good arrow, especially for hunting. And like I said, I consider myself a very average archery shooter. But when you have a Carbon Express arrow and a Rage Broadhead and you're shooting it out of a Matthews bow, it can take you from being very average to very, very good. And I say that with all respect to the equipment because I owe it all to the equipment. Yes, I can get my form to a certain situation where I can just pack arrows in there. Perfectly on time. This has to be Zeke. Let's see what we got here. Hello, this must be Zeke.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
I'm fine, Zeke. I'm with Brad Rucks. We're at the Deer Talk Now headquarters, and I just want to say, first of all, a welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Oh, it's my privilege, Dan. I appreciate the offer.
Zeke, this is Brad. I'm going to start off with my own personal question because I've been reading about so much of it on the internet and other places. EHD in Nebraska, how bad is it?
We've got quite a bit of blue tongue right now in our area, and I think it's partly because it's been such a hot season and they're very concentrated on the few water sources that we still have. So I was just driving around our property. We have about 300 acres that we hunt here in central Nebraska, and I think I found close to a dozen deer that had died near water sources right now. So
wow.
That's the main issue for us these days.
That stinks. Any of those mature bucks too, or not?
Well, thankfully, no, not in our area. I have seen pictures from friends' properties that, there are some nice deer that are going down. And you just hate to see it. You hate to see it with any kind of, any animal like this. And unfortunately, it's working its way through our state, so.
Yeah. Zeke, I wanted to bring everybody else back up to date. The people that are watching that are Deer and Deer Hunting loyal readers, they already know who you are, but just give us a little snapshot of yourself. I've never met you in person. We've worked together a long time on the magazine, and I know basically I was introduced to you by Charlie Alsheimer.
Right.
Maybe just give all the listeners a little bit of background on where you got started, your life's work, and where that's brought you today.
Yeah, sure. And, Dan, you were the first editor to accept one of my articles for publication, so you'll always have that title in my life. That was about 7 years ago,
I consider that an honor.
Yeah, well, it was one of the most exciting moments of my life. So we live in central Nebraska, actually in a town called Central City, Nebraska, and I'm a full-time pastor. It's an evangelical free church. The name of the church is Heartland, EFC. And we've been here 7 years. I think it was about 6 years ago that I was having a talk with my mother, who, we have a great relationship, but she doesn't hunt. She didn't grow up around it. She didn't really understand how hunting could be so important to me. And so we spent one night just talking about hunting and all the things that I love about deer hunting and bow hunting specifically. At the end of the night, I wrote that up in a blog, and she read it, and she printed it out and sent it to me. She had edited it and sent it to me, and she said, "You need to send this off. This is publishable." And so I made the edits, and I sent it to you because of my friendship with Charlie, and I've been reading your magazine for years prior to that. And you emailed me 4 or 5 days later and said, "I'll buy it." And so that was I think that was 6 or 7 years ago, and that's when I started, I would say that's when I started writing, and I started sending out more articles and had good success, I would say, from that very beginning. And then, I'm still a full-time pastor. I still write, hunting articles every year. But about 4 years ago, I was, I talk about this in the book that we're going to talk about, but I had the opportunity to be a part of a man's life as he was dying. And he was a great sportsman. He's had more success in the woods than I have, for sure. And, so I was really drawn to the guy and interested in his life. And he had a lot of stories to tell about time spent outdoors. But then he also had a lot of regrets about how he was finishing his life. He was dying of cancer, and he kept saying, "Man, I just wish I could I wish I could have a do-over." And when I asked him what he meant by that, he said, "I blew it. I blew it in my marriage. I blew it in my friendships. The things that really matter in life, man, I didn't do it well." And that really hit me. That actually happened in December or January, but it was at the end of a pretty aggressive hunting season for me. And I woke up that next Monday morning after his funeral, and I just thought to myself, I want to write a book about this because I want to explore it. I want to put down my goals and my values. Man, sportsmen are my people, and so I also had the desire, if I could help one guy think through some of these things with me, it'd be worth it as well. And so about 4 years ago is when I started thinking about, writing a book, and that's the book that turned into Man on the Run here. So.
And that's what we should mention is, Zeke, correct me if I'm wrong here, but your website is just ZekePfeiffer.com, correct?
Yep, that's right.
If anybody wants to check out this book, it is really a powerful book for hunters and for hunters who want to, come to grips more with how to have a well-rounded life. And, it's really, really, like I said, powerful. Go to Zeke's website, ZekePfeiffer.com, and you're going to find that. We also have a plug for it on deeranddeerhunting.com. But that's what I've enjoyed most, Zeke, not only your friendship through all of our conversations and our emails throughout the years, but the way you've been able to connect your thoughts and beliefs with hunting. And it's some of the most popular articles that we've run in the magazine over the past 10 years have been ones you've written. And one that comes to mind immediately for me is it came from a conversation you and I had.
Right.
And it came from a reader actually initially, and it's something I had wanted to write myself, didn't know how I could do it, and I kind of sat on that idea for a long time. But to fill everybody in, basically the premise of the article was going back to, thou shalt not worship false gods. And and I asked Zeke, I said, is hunting a false god? Do we sometimes put so much emphasis on, planting food plots and growing trophy bucks and this type of thing. And where does our passion for our activity cross a line to something unhealthy? And Zeke, I thought you knocked that out of the park when you wrote that piece for deer and deer hunting. I thought it was something that almost every deer hunter, whether you're a religious person or not, can get your hands around and appreciate.
Yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, I think that idea originated with you. I remember getting an email from you, and you said, "Hey, how would you like to explore this in an article?" And I was not only excited by that, but I was so impressed by you, Dan, because, I mean, you're writing to a broad spectrum of men and women that have, a broad spectrum of beliefs. And I just thought that's a really courageous question to explore in an article. And so, I think we called that article, Great Sport, Horrible God, or something like that. And, the idea was that hunting is an amazing sport. I mean, we're all on the same page with that. It's just an incredible way to spend time and find challenge and provide for our families. And there's just so many great things about hunting. But yet if it slips over into that category of being the thing that we treasure or we love more than we love Jesus, then, it just makes a horrible God. It really doesn't have the power to, provide all of our happiness and all of our contentment, everything that we really need in life. And so, I think we just explored in that article the place that hunting should have in our lives, but also, shouldn't have.
Yeah, and like I said, if we go back, I'll figure out exactly which issue date that was, so people can look that one up again. But it is probably the most reader mail we've ever received, and I've been working here 18 years, so that says something.
Is that right?
Zeke, we're going to get to some of the questions now. Brad and I don't know if you know how we do this, but basically we've assembled a good cross section of questions from all the Deer Talk Now listeners. And we're just going to go round robin. We're each going to ask questions, and we're just going to try to get your thoughts on some of the topics. Brad, why don't you take the first one?
Here's the first one. It's from Ryan Bauer right here out of Wisconsin. And he asked you, Zeke, what would you rank as the top 5 things as far as getting close to a giant whitetail? What are the 5 things that are most important?
In terms of what to do as strategies?
Yeah, strategy, scent control, stand placement, any of that stuff.
Yeah, that is a great question. I would say for me personally, I do worry quite a bit about scent control, but I would say number 1 on my list for scent control is just I check weather.com to figure out where that wind is going to be every 15 minutes. And I do wear scent control. I'm so cautious about that. I wash my towels in scent control, soap, and I get dressed out in the field before I walk to the stand. But I really play the wind because those old wary bucks can smell you from 150 yards away. So you've really got to be careful both how you're walking into your stand and then also what stand you choose for the wind. Along with that, then, you need to kind of know your deer's habits and their patterns on your property that you're hunting specifically, kind of where they're going bed to feed and feed back to bed, and you kind of need to know where they might probably going to be coming from in order to play the wind correctly. I would say, another strategy is just making sure that you're very, very comfortable with all your gear and all your equipment before you go to the stand, because you can do all the work to figure out where the deer are going to be and in which direction the wind is going to blow, but if you're not very, very comfortable with your archery gear or your rifle or the clothing that you're wearing, I've had bad experiences where my bow was shooting well, but my string caught on my arm because I didn't think about how puffy a jacket was. So I think thinking through your gear and making sure that you're comfortable, shooting and wearing, what you're going to be hunting in is important.
Those are some really great tips, especially like where Zeke hunts in Nebraska. I know you do a lot of your stuff in some of these more wide open areas, which is a little bit more difficult to work.
Right.
Off of.
Yeah, we do. We've got great timber. We live along the Platte River here in Nebraska, and so there's good timber, but there's also we have a lot of cornfields and a lot of really thin strips of timber, shelter belts that sometimes those hold the big bucks, especially early season when the corn is still in. So really have to play the wind, have to set up stands so that everything is quiet, and have to really know your gear well.
My point that you really made there is know your deer well. I think so many people across this country do not understand what deer are living on their farm. They're after some giant whitetail, and there's not even a deer their size they want to shoot on their property. So, they're passing up all these other bucks, and it's just a mistake. I mean, to me, that's number one. Know your deer, know what's on your farm, know which buck you want to shoot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Brad. That's exactly right.
Okay, Zeke, the next question is coming from Matt from Virginia. And Matt wants to know, he says, Reverend Piper, I love my wife of 12 years, and I love deer hunting as well. I have tried to get her into hunting so we can share this experience together, but she doesn't like it. What advice would you give to someone who is trying to balance the two loves of their life in a harmonious atmosphere at the same time?
Yeah, boy, that's the question, isn't it?
It's kind of a loaded question, actually, but
yeah, that's a good question, a hard question. I think that's the case, though, for a lot of us who love to deer hunt. Many of us are married to spouses that probably aren't going afield with us, and that's okay. It really is. I think the goal for any marriage is mutuality, and so that doesn't mean we have to do everything together, but it does mean that we kind of go through life together, and we show interest in each other's priorities. My wife Jamie doesn't hunt. She grew up with a dad who does hunt. He's a great deer hunter, so she has an appreciation for it, and she's very, very curious about how my times outdoors go. If I do get a deer, she and the kids are outside waiting for me when I get home, and I feel very supported by her. But I think a part of that is because we have that kind of marriage where I also know what she's interested in, and I try to pay attention and cheer her on in her passions as well. And so I think our spouse is going to be much more supportive and encouraging of our passion to hunt if they feel that we reciprocate that in the areas that they care about. So it's not so much, hey, you need to really join me in this and feel the way I do about it. But I think if we'll say, hey, what's my wife really passionate about? What would it look like for me to show the interest in her that I want her to show in me, in my hunting? And I think that'll work out well. So
it's kind of funny as as a life lesson. When you're younger, you try to get your wife involved, and I got my wife shooting a bow. She wouldn't hunt either. But, when we had smaller kids, she understood I'd love it and would watch the kids. But now her favorite day is opening day of the firearms deer season. Why? Because I have all the kids, and it's the time. Oh. She's in the house by herself with no kids. I called her last year, I can remember, at 9 o'clock. I was like, hey, what are you doing? She goes, I'm reading a book. Just sitting in the house, dead quiet, reading her book. And she goes, it was the most pleasant day I've ever had.
Yeah, your wife and my wife have the same passion. My wife loves to read too, so that's great.
Hey, this one's an interesting question. It's from a Martha Huggart, and it says, how young do you think a child can go or can be to go hunting and handling the gun with an adult person? And then it also says, and how about without an adult person?
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's a good question for a parent to ask there. It'd probably be impossible to give a hard and fast answer, across the board there, because I think as parents, we understand that each one of our children, like we have 3 children, Jamie and I do, and they're each a little bit different. And so I think each child is different, and each, family is a little bit different. I think it's important for parents to, do quite a bit before they, take their child afield and show them a hunting situation and show them, the experience of taking a deer's life. I think it's good to watch some videos with them. It's good to ask a lot of questions of your child to try to figure out how are they going to handle, watching something that outweighs them 3 times. How are they going to handle watching that deer die? And I think just getting to know your child will really help answer that question. My son, I took him 2 years ago when he was 7, was his first time that he went into the deer woods with me, and he watched me shoot a doe one day. And by the time I took him, I knew that he was ready for that. I knew that he was, going to be able to handle that. Now, hunting and actually pulling the trigger himself, I think that's more of an issue of maturity and ability to be, self-controlled and safe. I think if they're able to watch a deer die, they're probably, psychologically able to pull the trigger. But I think a parent needs to make a good decision about, is my child going to be able to handle a rifle in a way that I can really trust him? And so, here in Nebraska, I believe the law says that a young person can actually hunt with an adult hunter before they're 12, as long as that adult is right there with them. But I think you have to be 12 here in Nebraska. And so I like it. I probably will let Aiden hunt before he turns 12. That's my son. But I'm gonna watch him very carefully and make sure we go through, hunter safety together before we do that. So, yeah, I think it can differ. I guess is the summary to a long answer. I think it can be different for different children, but I think parents are probably the best to make that judgment call depending on the child. So,
yeah, absolutely, it's great advice. The other thing is that you really don't take into consideration, once they're old enough to go by themselves or to do, they don't know the property like you do.
Right.
So, I still end up taking my daughters out to their gun hunting stands. And I can remember the first time I dropped at that time she was 15-year-old, off by herself. And all of a sudden, I'm walking away, not thinking about it. All of a sudden she goes, Dad, Dad, Dad. And I quickly walk back. I'm like, what? You are going to come back and get me, right? And I was like, well, just say I didn't. Which way would you walk out? And, she pointed the right way, but she wanted to make sure, I was going to come back to help her get out of the deer woods. So even at that age, at 15, she wasn't totally comfortable. Now, when my son, who's now 12, when he's 15, he's going to be all over my property. Right. He understands. I can tell him right now which tree stand or which camera to grab, and he can run down into the woods, pull out that stuff, and
I think that's the difference between boys and girls too. There's some differences there. I think. Some girls might be different as well, but like you said, you started them young enough.
The one thing I can tell you is when my son turned 10, I thought he would be just a killing machine because he'd been with me since I've been 5, and he watched the girls shoot their buck. He was right in the blind with us. Right. And when he was 10, he wasn't ready to pull the trigger, and I didn't force him. We saw 8 bucks opening day of the firearm season, and we let them all go. And he, you could say, well, were they big enough? Yeah, one was a legitimate 140-inch deer, and he just would be like, Dad, I'm so excited, I can't do it. I'm like, let him go, So as a parent, it was kind of fun to see. And then when they get over that, like last year, man, he would have filled every tag we could have. So,
yep, I bet. Yeah, I think the main thing, almost, listening to you guys, sounds like you're doing it. I think the main thing is keeping it about them in the sense that we can have a strong desire for them to hunt. We can say, oh, I want my son to shoot his deer when he's 10. But I think we need to really let them, in our understanding of what's best for them, help us make that decision,
Yeah. And the big thing is not to force them when it's cold. If they want to go and when they're cold, even though it's prime time, you better be willing to get out of that tree stand with them, because You
Yep.
can't make it an uncomfortable situation.
You don't want to create bad memories.
Yeah, otherwise they won't want to go with you.
That's exactly right.
Okay, Zeke, our next question is coming from Philip Fox from Kentucky. And Philip wants to know, he says, this is his question, many pastors say you cannot worship in the woods. What do you believe the Bible teaches us about this?
Yeah, boy, I'm glad we got that question. That's a good one. I think we were made to worship every single place we're present, and I think there's a sense in which our living rooms and our kitchens, our garages, are every bit as special or as sacred as the sanctuary in our church. We're not meant to live this kind of fractured life where, part of life is sacred and the other part is secular. I think all of life is supposed to be sacred. And so I'll tell you right now, some of my best times that, I feel closest to the Lord and I have some, good time to pray and not feel distracted, those are my times outside. And I love being with God outside in the deer woods. Now, I think what oftentimes pastors are trying to target when they make a comment like that is sometimes you'll see kind of this attitude of rugged individualism in hunters where they're like, church doesn't make sense to me. I don't want any part of that. My worship happens outside, kind of thing. And then I think there's actually some truth to this idea that, we're not just these individuals out there disconnected from community. I think for a hunter to really have a sense of who he is and his place in community, he does need to plug in deeply into a local body and be a part of a church. And so I think the church is very important. I think it's where we as men have an incredible opportunity to be men and serve and lead. But at the same time, I would love nothing more than for all of us as deer hunters to know that when we go out into the woods, we are still with the Lord. And we are just in a very special place that He's created, and we get to be with Him. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think that's how I would want to answer that question.
That's
there.
Good question.
Absolutely. Hey, the next one I got is from Mark Roloff, and it says, what is it that you think about just prior to releasing that arrow at a buck of a lifetime?
Okay. What I make myself think about before I move my finger at all on my release is I want to make sure that I'm exhaling. And that may be silly, but I kind of go through the same routine of seeing the buck, deciding in my mind when's the right time to draw back. I use the same anchor point every time. But before I release, the one thing that I want to be conscious of is that I'm exhaling the breath that's in me. And what that does to me is it kind of forces me to relax a little bit. And I find that I make my best shots happen when I'm kind of in that very, conscious awareness that I've relaxed and I've exhaled. So that's what I think about right before I squeeze that trigger.
For me, it's pick a spot. It seems like, when I reflected about all the times that I ever missed, I'm just so excited, and I just float the pin behind that front shoulder, and I'm really not burning a hole through that thing. And since I started picking spots, man, most of the time I can hit that spot.
Picking a spot is especially important. For me, it's just not looking, if it's a buck, not looking at his antlers and just focusing on
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you guys on that. And as soon as I identify he's a shooter, I do not look back at his antlers.
Me either.
Period.
Yeah, you're looking where he's going to figure out where you're going to stop him to kill him is what I do.
Exactly. You kind of got to get in
where his front leg is. If his front leg is extended forward or back, because that helps you figure out when to shoot, and all those things are very important.
Oh, excellent. Okay, let's get to our next question. And this actually goes to arrows. This question is the winner of the Carbon Express arrows, heart attack arrows, and it's going to Gary Anderson of Minnesota. Gary, congratulations. Make sure we get your mailing address because you want those brand new arrows. We'll ship them out right away. But Gary wants to know, Zeke, he said bow hunting might be his strongest non-family passion. He says, how can I help? Well, this is kind of a repeat of the other one, but how can I help my wife and family better understand my passion for hunting and spending time in the woods?
Yeah, it is a slightly different question, and I think that gets to maybe more of, how do I communicate well, try to put words to this, passion that's inside many of us here. Honestly, this is going to sound like kind of a shameless plug for the book here, but I've had a lot of women read this book, at least probably as many women as men, and then come back to me and say, I had no idea how my husband could think about and love these things that he's involved with. It's helped wives understand their husbands' drives and their passions. And so, one thing that I might recommend is just to ask his wife to read it with him. And I think he'd gain some self-awareness, perhaps, but I think she'd also, come to understand him well. But I would just say, one of the great things that we can do, and this is just a communication strategy, is when we see something in our wives that they really love, and you just see them put a lot of their thoughts and their energy toward, participating in. I think it's great in those moments to say, okay, how you're looking at, like with my wife, she loves to homeschool, and she's amazing. She's a really great homeschool teacher. And so I've been able to say to her, your passion to homeschool and to do that well, I have a lot of similar feelings and thoughts about bow hunting. And so when we can draw kind of those analogies to each other's lives, sometimes that helps make sense of what the other person is feeling. So,
all right,
that's great advice.
We got about one more question for you here, Zeke, and then we're going to let you go. Brad's got the final question.
Okay, I'm going to look at these, see which one I think's best.
Make it hard, right?
Well, this one was kind of what you just answered. One of the people just asked, Reverend Zeke, what advice would you give to someone to try to keep a wife and 4 kids, 18, 15, 6, and 6-year-old happy? Everyone wants to hunt except for my wife, so there isn't enough of me to go around. So that one's kind of, you got answered. But let's try the other one. I have a friend who will not allow anyone to sight in the rifle at camp, not for safety reasons, because he says it will scare the deer away from them the next morning. What is your opinion?
Okay, so this guy doesn't want to sight his rifle in deer camp?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, he's got to sight it in someplace. If he's traveled with that gun at all, he's got to shoot it someplace. And so I suppose it's fine to not shoot that in deer camp, although the camp isn't likely going to be set up within, 300 yards of where they're going to be hunting. But he's got to go someplace. What I would not want to encourage is just taking that rifle that he's traveled with and going straight to the stand, because even the best quality rifles with solidly mounted scopes are capable of getting bumped and shifted. So take it someplace and shoot it.
Yeah,
I agree.
You know what's sad about rifles is, and you see it so much in Wisconsin, a guy doesn't really pick up and shoot his rifle other than, a month before the season or 2 weeks before the season. He sights it in, yes, it's on, but and this is the voice of experience. I mean, I wasn't a very good rifle shot, to be honest with you, in my younger years, and I just didn't shoot him enough to feel comfortable. Now that deer's 200 yards away, I don't even think anything of it. It's like, oh yeah, that's
it's just like bow hunting. You have to practice, and even just the memory of bow hunting is muscle memory. Rifle hunting is just breathing and those types of techniques. Yep. Well, Zeke,
Yeah, we really do
again,
owe it to the.
I want to thank you so very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. I hope we can do this again with you. Just hearing your insights, not only on hunting tactics, but just hunting philosophies and life philosophies, I very much appreciate that.
Well, I respect both you guys, and so it's really my privilege to be a part of this today.
All right. Well, thanks, Zeke. I hope to see some pictures of you with some nice deer here pretty soon.
Yeah, you'll hear as soon as anybody, Dan.
Best of luck.
Okay, you guys take care. Have a great season.
Yep, you too. Thanks. You know, Brad, I really, like I said, I really enjoy Zeke not only as a person, but you know what he brings to the magazine, and it obviously shows because he has such a large following.
Yeah, and it's definitely unique to have a pastor that loves to hunt, that can really understand, you know, from one of us. I mean, I'll go to church at strange times or as close to non-prime time as I possibly can, so that I can hunt those early mornings or in the afternoon. So
right.
it's refreshing.
Very refreshing. Very refreshing. We got 2 more questions here that I want to answer before we leave. But before we do that, we want to remind everybody, check it out. That's the new can cooker that we have at shopdeerhunting.com. We got a special on them today. You can get a discount off of this. What this is you can heat it on any heating source, kitchen stove, grill, whatever. You fill this thing up, the top comes off. You fill it up with potatoes, carrots, onions, venison, whatever you want to put in there, chicken, turkey, and you close it and it cooks via steam.
And if you don't know,
it's solid.
Yeah, if you're wondering what kind of food you can cook, visit the Can Cooker website. I mean, they got free recipes right on there. They probably have 30 of them. So if you're worried about what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, you know, right there they tell you exactly.
Well, I can't wait to try it for deer season, because basically you can put that on, and it's not like a traditional can cooker, that type of philosophy. This will cook in an hour.
Yeah.
So you don't have to sit there and have it on all day long. You can put it on when you get home from hunting and have a big, nice hot meal. Check it out, the website. Or you can call the toll-free number. If you call the number or go to the website, make sure you enter that promo code DeerTalk. You're going to get 10% off your order today. And that's off of anything on shopdeerhunting.com. We have the Deer Hunter's Almanac on sale. We just got those back from the printer last week. They're not on newsstands yet. We have Smokey's Deer Lure. It's pre-orbital lure. We still have a few bottles left, not a ton, but if you want to do a mock scrape, just try it out. It's well worth your time. Smokey's Deer Lure. Enter the promo Deer Talk. You're going to get 10% off of that as well. Also, what I want to, before we get to these questions, tonight, Sportsman's Channel.
Yep.
Destination Whitetail.
8:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Central Time. We just come off the month of August, which we ranked number 6. So we had the 6th most popular show.
Thank everybody for
network.
doing that.
Absolutely. It's a huge deal. So we went from number 9 to number 6. You know, hopefully we can get better than that, but I'm happy where we are. It is an entertaining show. It's really different than anything that we've ever done before. It's more about the location. If you haven't checked it out, it's more about the location that you're hunting at than it is about shooting some giant whitetail.
Well, and you know, I'm partial because we got Deer and Deer Hunting TV on NBC Sports. My favorite show, Destination Whitetail, my favorite show, Land of Whitetail on Pursuit, my favorite show. But check out Destination because it's on tonight. DDH is not going to air until later in the week, but Destination tonight, awesome, awesome show. I think it's the best new show on outdoor TV. Let's get to these last 2 questions, Brad, and I think it's only going to be 1 question, actually. And this is from James Austin from North Carolina. James, and I am going to ask you this because you know this. James wants to know, Brad, what are your strategies for using trail cameras during near real scrapes?
During real scrapes, I'm going to put it right on that scrape. I want to find out when that buck's coming there. That's basically it. I mean, I don't care if you know he's coming to it, individual deer. First, you want to find out what bucks are there. If you know one's particular hitting the scrape, I want to find out if he's hitting in the morning or evening. What do you do with that information? Well, you figure out if he's in the morning, where does he typically like to bed? If he beds on a certain area of your property, try to figure out the most, the closest funnel edge you can to hunt that spot. If he's a evening deer or some deer are hitting that scrape during daylight hours, hang a stand right on that scrape. I mean, you see a number of big deer that are killed directly over a scrape. Normally, those are not those field edge scrapes. They're the dominant, scrape that is in the side of the woods, 300-400 yards. And the best days to hunt those, if it's raining, it seems like those whitetails, especially the mature ones, want to get up there, make sure their scent's fresh in all those scrapes, and they're going to work that scrape trail and hopefully give you a shot at them.
Awesome tips. Well, that about does it for today. Make sure you go to shopdeerhunting.com for these specials. Until next week, thanks for joining us on Deer Talk Now. I'm Dan Schmidt, Brad Rucks. We'll see you next week.